Welcome again, and it's a pleasure to have you on the call. So today we're going to be talking about something interesting, and it's great to see a lot of persons on the call who are from communities with a design focus. So another question, if you are a designer or if you're part of a design focused community, also indicate in the comments or you just use an emoji to share that. If you're a designer or if you're part of a design focused community. Great, nice. I would like us to keep this energy going because in our conversation today, the speakers might also want you to answer a few questions in the comments. So keep up this energy. All right, so just before we get right into it, I'll introduce myself and then talk a very little about Propel, and then we'll talk about the masterclass today. We'll talk about our speakers, and then we'll get on right to the conversation for today. Okay, welcome again. My name is Dennis Kando, and I am the program manager here at Propel. So for those who do not already know what Propel is or what we are for the basis of our conversation and on the call today, Propel is a community-powered platform that helps you access tech jobs. It helps you gain access to embedded finance and opportunities and so many other benefits. So if you're already part of a community that isn't Propel, you would testify to this fact that you're of course gaining access to jobs and opportunities on the platform. And so with jobs, we are helping you gain access to global roles, remote roles as well, and hybrid. And then for embedded finance, mostly for those who are in Nigeria, you would gain access to loan features, buy now, pay later features with access to gadgets and all of that. And then with opportunities, we're also providing you with access to hackathons, scholarship, all of these you can access on the Propel platform. So if your community is not already part of Propel, pitch this and invite them to join. And if they are, I hope you are really taking advantage of the jobs and opportunities that we have available. So getting right into it, one of the ways that we engage everyone who is part of the Propel community is by providing learning opportunities like this. And so we kicked off master classes very early this year. And these master classes are designed to help you with learning opportunities. And so for the previous masterclass, we focused on developer communities. So these developer communities, we talked about how to build a strong developer portfolio. And if you're a part of that masterclass previously, I hope that it was very worth your time because we had a live CV review on the call, showing you how to create a CV that stands out and how you can better apply for jobs on the Propel platform. So today we'll be talking about something really interesting, and we're going to be sharing insights on design. So with the influx of AI, it's no longer news that AI has affected every single thing, and one of those is design. And so today we'll be talking about the intersection between AI and design and how it is changing the entire creative process. We have awesome speakers on the call who are going to be sharing this with us. And I'll just get right on to introducing them in a bit. Just a moment to confirm. Okay, our first speaker is not here yet, so we will.
I'm here.
Oh, great! I was searching for you. Okay, quickly make you a co-host so you can share your screen. All right, so we have two awesome persons who are going to be sharing their insights on AI and design. And I'll just get right on to introducing both of them. And then I'll introduce the first one. She'll take her part and we'll get on to listening to the second speaker. So first up, we will be listening to ԻníOlúwa Abiodun. She is a lawyer turned designer from Nigeria. She is also a senior product designer working for growth at Intercom, where she leads web performance efforts. She has collaborated with startups, scale-ups, and corporations across various sectors, including e-commerce, HR, HR tech, and B2B SaaS. She also actively mentors designers and co-hosts the Growth Design podcast. And in that podcast, she interviews design leaders from companies like Flowdesk, Adobe, Miro, and Zuri. I only see one person who is clapping. I only see one person who is appreciating as we're introducing the speaker. Hi, Ini, welcome. It's such a pleasure to have you on the call. So for the next few minutes, she's going to be talking about the impact of AI in design, and she would also be sharing AI-powered tools and use cases. So you have our attention now.
Hello, everybody. Good afternoon, I believe, is it? Can you please confirm that you can all see my screen? I have to make sure I'm using two screens and I would like to make sure it's the right one. Perfect, perfect. That is good. Okay, good. Nice. Hello. It's wonderful to be here with you. So we're going to jump straight into it because I feel like I may have overdone it. I have about 60 slides to get through in 45 minutes. So let's get started. So yeah, as we know today, like AI is not going anywhere. It's very much part of our world. And in the next 45 minutes, I will try my possible best to get through all of these slides. But more importantly, we're going to explore together how AI is reshaping the creative process from end to end. We're going to look at real practical examples of AI tools across different design disciplines. We will step through AI integrated workflows, and I will share a case study of a couple of companies that are also adopting AI in design. Now, we're going to sort of, I try to make sure it's not just fully design. I want to touch on a couple of disciplines that are actually quite tied to our work as designers as well. So what does that look like, for example, when you think about roles of like copywriters who work closely with designers or art directors? How are we all interacting with AI? And finally, we're going to walk through how we ensure, like the key takeaway, if there's anything I want you to take away from this talk, let it be that AI is not, absolutely not replacing the creative professional. It is augmenting them. The biggest threat that you have to yourself, to your professional work right now is actually not necessarily AI for the time being. It is the designer that or the next creative next to you who is going out of their way to master these tools and really let it amplify their creativity and productivity. So yeah, so we know that today with a simple keystroke, you can imagine and bring worlds to life, like worlds that previously might have been inaccessible or taken a great deal of effort to collaborate to create. But we've got tools like Lovable, Bolt, Cursor, Figma Make, which was just announced yesterday at Config. All of these things there are a few of many tools that are impacting our entire process. And AI has emerged as a very powerful force that we can use to reshape how we conceptualize, how we create, how we iterate on our work. So the one thing I just wanted to say, like quickly, there's a question that oftentimes comes up like, oh, but AI is not creative. And I tend to agree actually that it is garbage in, garbage out, really, is the concept of AI, right? Can AI be creative? There are so many philosophical debates that we can get into, but the point that I would like to point out is like many times it is the people who are adopting it. So for example, this starts from MIT Sloan in America, says that those that adopted it early enough, I've been saving up to 11 hours per week. And I say this because I'm a major early adopter of AI as well. I've been using AI tools since 2021. And I'm at the point where my AI subscription alone, the cost of it is something that I tend to like augment to my workplace. Because if they were on my own dime, then it would be seriously, it would be a lot to deal with. But now, let's start with this image. This is a picture that was the winner of the photo category of Sony World Photography Awards. And what's impressive about this is that it wasn't until this picture was selected as the winner for the composition, the way the entire setup was, that the creator came out to say, hey, I actually generated that imagery that you're celebrating as being like human ingenuity. what does this mean for like the future of creative disciplines when the lines are blurring really between what AI can do and what we can recognize that is AI doing. So should we be bogged down with like conversations and going back and forth like, oh yeah, it's taking all these jobs, so we're not going to participate? I would say that is the absolutely wrong direction to be going in. And I say this also with a bit of authority because I work at Intercom, which is a company that is at the forefront of cutting technology when it comes to AI, and how we use AI to shape customer service. So I'm quite close to the entire experience of how we use this tech or how we imagine and design for this tech. And many times, unfortunately, I've seen too many conversations where we're not focusing on the right things. We're too bogged down by, oh, but illustrators are losing jobs, for example. Like that is a reality of it. But then I like us to cast our mics back. Well, many of us may not have been born by then, but at the point where things like the camera was invented, obviously it took jobs from certain types of people, like artists. Or when calculators were invented, it's almost like, okay, the point of technology largely has always been to speed up the rate at which we use it and how it improves our lives. And yes, you might argue that there are downsides to it, but I would counter back and say that is the nature, that's human nature really. So how can you prioritize your learning and your usage of it? So let's dig into tools. We'll start first with tools before we then sort of try to weave this as much as possible together. So yeah, there's a whole new design toolkit, for example, that's transforming the way we work. So when you think about generative imagery, so I actually created this entire animation. No, the animation was not AI. I actually created it myself. But what is AI? Obviously, is the imagery. And what I was trying to create with this interaction is what if I could simply prompt instead of having to constantly type out my prompts for Midjourney, for example? Could I use my voice for it? What does that interaction look like? So much of my work at the moment is also visualizing what interaction levels are. So I tend to dig into these kind of things a lot. Now, generative tools, you've got Midjourney, you've got DALL-E, you've got Stable Diffusion, you've got Adobe Firefly. There are so many of these that are useful in the process of generating and modifying imageries. And this definitely ties into how your workflow begins to change when you have access to images that help you conceptualize very quickly. Adobe has now integrated their Firefly tool across Adobe Suite, which makes your work even faster. You do not have to necessarily exit your workflow to go to Midjourney to get the kind of things you need. And especially because Midjourney also costs money, it's about $20 or £20. If you pay a single Adobe subscription, you potentially now have access to Firefly, where you can simply generate as you work in Photoshop or in Illustrator. And what's so incredible about Figma's announcement as well yesterday is that you now have Figma Make, where, okay, let's keep going. We're gonna get into it. Okay, there we go. Right. So now this is a campaign that I creatively conceptualized and imagined the entire thing in Midjourney. And the part where I created it was like human AI co-creation. The human part was putting the layouts together and making sure things fit, choosing the right typography, curating the images till I found the right kinds of images and completely just prompting deeper and deeper to get access to it. Now, when you think about video and motion tools, for AI, you've got things like Runway ML, you've got Adobe After Effects AI, and then you've got Meta's Make a Video. There are so many. There's Luma AI, which is also coming out and is so incredible. I'm super excited. Like we will be interviewing the head of design at Luma, for example, and those are part of the things that I'm grateful that I have a chance to talk to these people on my podcast. So, for example, you will see Luma was integral in bringing some of the images that I created in this personal projects campaign to life. Right. So please, I just want to say that as I whiz through these slides as quickly as I can, please go ahead and drop your questions in the comment section, in the chat. I cannot view them now, but I hope to be able to get to them as soon as I'm done. Now, let's come to the world of product design. I'm a product designer. I'm a visual and product designer. Now, Figma AI, FigJam AI, those are tools that have become very integral to part of my workflow, right? And with much of Figma's announcement yesterday, it means that the concept of vibe coding now comes into Figma, and I am so excited about that because I've been playing with Lovable. I've seen my teammates at work create the most incredible things with like Bolt and Lovable and just generate ideas for the sake of it. I actually have a founder friend who has gone on to use Lovable to create an entire business. Like I'm talking, he has no technical background, for example. He's not a designer, and he was able to generate not just the website for this business, but also the technical back end of the business, connected to Stripe to set up billing and payment, things that if you did not have context or you needed an engineer for, it might take weeks and months to get sorted through. And at the click of a button or at the stroke of a button, you can begin to see how vibe coding definitely changes lives. There is a designer called Meng2 who vibe coded through Cursor, what's it called now? A video editor. He wrote over 50,000 lines of code without being a developer, and that tool is available for sale. These are the kinds of things like I love that AI is flattening the landscape, and for the people who are plugged in, you are able to begin to see how you might explore bringing your ideas to life, and who knows where that idea could take you. Right. So I've literally just gone in on this. Like when it comes to web design, front end development, and things like that, you begin to see how this completely evolves. Right. So for brand and marketing design, we're not left out of it. I've mentioned Adobe Firefly, but then here's one of my favorite tools as well when it comes to just like generating very realistic imagery that can go into your marketing campaign. It's called Visual Electric. That's the screenshot on the screen. I think it's just fantastic that you can see how simply by prompting, like you go from simple prompts and you bring worlds alive. When it comes to brand identity, I think this is the one of the workflows that is very impacted today because instead of just staring at a blank page, creatives now get a chance to get an AI generated draft, bring your rough ideas to life, work out entire campaign concepts, collaborate with ChatGPT or with a copywriter and ChatGPT to accelerated process, and just explore different brand voices and see how these results can accelerate your entire process. So let's talk about this process thing that we've been going into, right? Now, how does AI fit into each stage of the design process? So when we think about ideation conceptualization, like the first thing is like, all right, where do we get started visually? Where do we think about like text brainstorming? Previously, you as a designer probably don't have all of this language, right, that you can use to iron out the kinks. So you wouldn't rely on a copywriter to sort of bring this to life. But no, between GPT, Notion, and things like that, you can begin to bring this to life. So let me give you a practical example. When I was thinking about the campaign, I had the rough idea, hey, let's create a fashion campaign for a luxury resort swimwear brand. Fun fact for anyone who doesn't know, while I was in Nigeria, I actually won a major national competition and dressed Korea Conde to the AMVCAs in 2015. And I think back to my entire experience as a business owner while I was a law student, back between 2010 and when 2016, I think if I had today's tools back then, it would have made, like, I prefer to hand draw a lot of the bridal gowns I worked on. Like Dakore's gown had over 20,000 petals. But I imagine being able to create that in a snap, bring my ideas to life, right? So that's what was inspiring this journey. Let's create this campaign and let's see. So I started from what we call an ICP, ideal customer profile. For this campaign, what does she look like? The good thing about this is I no longer just have to wait for a photographer. Like the process gets turned in on its head a little bit, right? So I explored with a few imagery and said, okay, let's play around. And ultimately, I landed on this very striking image and thought, you know what? What does this image read to me? It comes across as confident, adventurous, unapologetic, unafraid, attention to detail, and quality for this brand. So what I then began to do, I just put a screenshot of the sample shots. And this was when Midjourney was still in Discord. Now Midjourney is available on the web, which is incredible. And I can read that out loud. It's just like an ultra realistic shot of a black model in a colorful print silk swimwear, one photography, Vogue campaign shoot with a pole. And then I put all the technical details that are needed for the referencing and bits. And look at how Midjourney handles that image. We go from a static shot to a very visual fashion imagery. And from there, once I saw this image, I saw the textile print and all the ideas began to come alive. Now, before we go into that, I'm going to segue just a little bit more. Thinking about it, when it comes to design execution and content creation, that's what I'm excited about, what AI makes possible. I worked as a marketing and brand designer in central London in 2023, and part of my tasks was creating a lot of layouts of adverts, like Facebook marketing. And my goodness, you had to create every single advert in so many layouts, every version of it in so many layouts. And with what Figma announced yesterday, where you can use grids to automatically resize a lot of your work, you drop one in and you have so many variations. And I'm excited, quite frankly, with how it is automating those repetitive aspects where you're thinking, oh my God, I need to bring it back into frame. I need to set up the grids. I need to set up the columns. All of this is in like the stressful, the grunt work. It gets taken away and then it leaves room for your creativity to bubble to the top. So take this prompt, for example. Like I worked on this identity for a leading recruitment agency here. And in generating content, like I want to create assets very quickly, mockups. But I don't want to start scouring the internet for like free mockups for me to go through this process. What can I do? Hey, by the way, the imagery I do have on the right, which is the V, I designed the logo, the V with wrapped around in the oval, but then I brought it to life in Adobe Firefly first. So that imagery you see was in Firefly. And then, so like I asked it to give me an embroidered version. And then I generated in Midjourney the imagery to the left of a woman carrying a tote bag with no print, nothing on it. I needed it to be plain for me to be able to place that embroidered logo onto the bag. Now, this was my simple prompt. This is how it's handled. This is the end result. And it's just absolutely fascinating to be able to see this come to life where I would, and heck, get this, Adobe's gotten very expensive, trust me. I've had to cancel my subscription. I don't miss that at all for a second. Why? Because so much of my time is being handled this way because I can ideate as quickly as possible. Let's put this in badge on a shirt, right? I mean, I had to go through a few of this to make sure that the proportions were right, but ultimately, here we go. Once again, bringing it to life with a quickness. So that's the point of it. It's the iteration, the refinements, the rapid variations of it. You can go from, see, this is just a simple snapshot of how many imageries it took for me to get to the one image I showed you earlier. So that's the thing. Once you get started, you can begin to push it even further. And when I talked about the fabric of the for the marketing campaign of this imaginary fashion brand, this is how I pushed it. I kept digging into the details because I knew what to look for. So there are two ways AI can function for you. One, it can actually educate you because you begin to learn. There's something that we call the craft and taste gap, which is when your efforts and your taste don't match up. You don't yet have the ability to be able to execute at the level that your taste is. I love that AI can, if you know what to do, can close that gap for you a little bit. So which means I don't have any expertise in textile design, but I was a designer. I was a fashion designer for 8 years. And what that means is I know what quality looks like, and I know what kind of fabric and how it should drape on the human body, right? So by taking 10 minutes, I can go to 5, 10, 20 variations. And in fashion design, being able to generate this pattern colorways means I can see a full range before deciding on the best one. So yeah, and then I began to just generate more and more of this imagery. And what then my campaign started to come together. So I dropped these into Figma and began to just align my typography and just get a look and feel and play around. And then the idea came, hey, what if this brand had a bag, right? So how about we do a luxury resort bags as well to go with this? And then I used ChatGPT to help me with the language of what kind of copywriting would go with this, and bring the heat with tropical fever, right? And then going forward, like what if these assets needed to go on social media? What would that look like? So I generated a story format and then edited it in Figma, put it together. And then what if this goes on the website? What does that experience look like, right? And yeah, just generating different versions. But to be fair, this was before we then had the massive boost in being able to use Lovable and things like that to generate websites. I actually should go back and drop these into Lovable and bring a full website to life and say, hey, look at what I was able to create. But all of this I hand designed. It was just the images of the models and the clothing that were generated. Now here's more. I set up the entire layout in Figma, dropped the images in, played around with typography. More of those. And yeah, that's absolutely a fashion campaign ready to go, right? But then still going back to the design process, when it comes to collaboration, to co-creation, to design handoff and specs, what does the future look like? I think that once again, this is what excites me about it, because I've been fortunate to actually sort of critique the beta version of this product. The founder, Reed, is someone who is doing incredible work in the design industry. And if you're a designer, I'm absolutely shouting out his podcast. It's called Deep Dive by Reed. His name is RIDD. It's here on the screen. You should check it out on Spotify, because you will be listening to him interviewing people at the cutting edge of technology, designers leading the way at the cutting edge of technology. But absolutely, this is a tool that he's created to finesse what a lot of designers struggle with, which is cross-functional feedback, because many times feedback could be very non-direct and it can be very frustrating. So now AI can bridge knowledge gaps. So the design team sends this through to the stakeholder. The AI surfaces, takes from what the designer talks about, like we're looking for feedback in X, Y, and Z. And then it takes all of that, presents it to the stakeholder feeds the feedback in, and the AI filters out just what is necessary. I mean, you can access the rest of it if you want, but the most necessary part of that is then given back to you in actionable feedback, which I think takes a lot of communication issues out of the way when it comes to stakeholder management. So let's dig into a couple of stakeholder case studies in the real world, right? I love this case study so much, which is like Mattel and Adobe. Now, Mattel, they are the creators of Barbie, the doll, the fashion doll. Now, Mattel has been using Adobe's suite for years. They'd use it to generate a lot of the, what's it called now? A lot of the packaging and things like that. And then they began to think through, hey, what about the backgrounds that we spend so much time setting up and reimagining? With Adobe Firefly, how can we accelerate these workflows? So the designers on their team drew very basic, simple sketches, well, quite thorough, but created sketches for creative direction to align. And then after that, they then brought this into Adobe Firefly, and then you can see the process. In Firefly, it's like the prompt is a pool with orange chairs, and then they take this into Photoshop and then place all the assets on it, and their packaging design done, right? So AI and creative teams, let's talk about it quickly. How is this affecting the dynamics of our roles? Because I remember what I said, think about this as updating how how these tools are impacting our new responsibilities in this world. So for copywriters and content strategists, I would say, honestly, it's for generating the first draft of your copy. In absolutely no fashion in today's world should a copywriter simply stick to what's generated as the final form. I think that is absolutely lazy, and that's where we begin to see a decline, because more people simply rely on it as the final version. You use it to curate, to push, to expand the extent of your ability. So for example, a copywriter can prompt AI for 10 headline options. I do this all the time. And then I pick the catchiest one and then refine the wording, because one thing AI is still missing sometimes is, as much as I can give you the audience, the tone, the key points, and all of these bits, I need to be the one that can maintain the brand voice. So as much as AI can mimic the style, I must ensure consistency and nuance. For visual designers, think of AI as like a concept artist, a production artist rolled into one. So it helps you generate and think through what's possible. Your job is to select, refine, and integrate it. Your skills are still very, very necessary. But then you can also use AI for like repetitive production tasks. So the resizing I talked about, the versioning, and all of these bits. You use this to enforce consistency. Think of yourself as the design orchestrators. Ensure that you're staying technical savvy to know the limits of AI, because also remember, for now, it is garbage in, garbage out. So you need to be able to ensure that consistency. For product designers, this is absolutely version. So currently there was a designer that posted at work and said, hey, I simply dropped a very basic version of this dashboard I was thinking about to make improvements. And I, in one prompt, generated 5 different versions. So instead of having to ideate from scratch, you know what that looks like. Now your Figma board is filled with like 75 different options and you don't even know where to begin. AI helps you generate that bottom line very quickly, so you can then use your expertise to select the options and then take that into your own system and refine and create, rather than consistently starting from scratch. For art directors, creative directors, you use AI to generate storyboards, style frames, mood films that guide the creative teams. I can actually give you an example of this. So I've got a client that I'm working through their brand identity, and I got an email this morning that said, hey, you remember we're launching June 2nd? We're thinking what the best way of showcasing and just celebrating with our partners our new brand identity. And at first, if we did not have AI, this would have to be a whole lot of process of having to go back and forth with the teams to understand, all right, what's the creative vision? How best do we showcase this? Because the founder of the NGO is going to be there. They're going to have donors. This thing is happening in Paris. How is this going to work together? No, very calmly, I've been working on the brand. I've got the mission, the vision, and all of these details. What I will be going to do is simply putting this into ChatGPT, putting the mission in and asking it for baseline storyboards. I gave it a sense of the script. How would we, like, it still came from me. I still sat down to ideate, what is the storyline I'm trying to tell with this video? The video is going to be 30 seconds. How do we talk through this? Bam, I had my storyboard, a Figma version. Well, when I say Figma version, like of the words, and now I can take all those words and then build the storyboards fully into Figma and send off to the team to say, hey, how are you thinking about this? That's half of the workload done in reduced time. Okay, for strategists, creative planners, it's almost exactly the thing I've talked about and showcased. You use AI to keep pulse on trends. So for example, I love Perplexity. Oh my God, it's one of the best tools in my kit. Why? Because Perplexity is a tool that does deep internet research. So it's not just generating and giving me things. No. Perplexity gives you the links to every single thing it references. And an average deep search with Perplexity will give you an average of 80 to 120 sources. So when it's time to sort of curate my thoughts together on a topic, I ask Perplexity to do that deep research for me. And then I take my time. I know that once I get my results, I typically take 2 to 3 hours to sit with it and just understand it. And one thing I love using it for is for generating cultural trends that are relevant to a certain audience for whatever it is I'm working on. And it's a fantastic way. Imagine I'll probably spend like 8-10 hours doing that research myself, and that just cuts it out. In 20 minutes, I can have a truckload full of resources to sort of work with. So let's think about the skills in this new world. How are we integrating design, right? It's not just changing our workflows, like we talked about, it's changing our world. Sorry, just checking in. Someone's drawing on the screen. Please be mindful. Just a heads up. Right. So now think about it, the art of communicating with AI, right? That is what prompt engineering is. When you understand, like these are skills that I am recommending that we all go learn now at this point, just making that clear. So being able to craft clear, detailed prompts is a very useful and very critical skill now. So for example, someone who designs and uses visuals, you can control style. So if you remember the visual image I generated, when I said use photorealistic, you use golden hour lighting, you use 85 photography. So I was a principal product designer last year at Norton Antivirus, and part of the work I did there was creating a bank of imagery. And when I say a bank, we generated close to 1,000 plus pictures. And what did I do? The point was using very good prompt engineering to ensure that we could craft imagery that was specific to our brand. We're not going to be used anywhere else by anybody. It's not just some random stock photography that anyone can use and we're also struggling with. They were very much ours to use. And I was very proud of that project. It was absolutely incredible. But this is it. You can only do this when you learn how to prompt. Now, AI literacy and model understanding, I cannot stress this enough. You don't need to know the mathematics as a designer of how neural networks work, but it might benefit you to understand how those two tools work at a high level. So for example, if you know that a diffusion image model might mash concepts together in a weird way, or that a language model tends to hallucinate facts, when it gives you facts or gives you some certain outputs, you can understand how to debug it. So if for example, I've put it into GPT before where I gave it some detail first and then prompted it. And then what it was returning to me had nothing to do with the information I'd given it. Obviously, that's a very straightforward example. You simply keep prompting and trying to understand it. But if you get the concept of prompt engineering as well, you will know how to limit and make sure like this hallucination concern comes down to a smaller minimum. Data curation and training is also super important. More and more creatives today need to understand that this is what I referenced when I talked about my work at as a principal product designer at Norton Antivirus. If you understand how to pick the right images, you can curate entire banks of things that become so it wasn't just about the imagery, it was also the prompts I used. I left those prompts behind when I left the role because then the team could continue to iterate using those prompts because those were now based on our brand identity, more or less. And this is also just like judgment and critical thinking. Don't just take everything that AI writes for what it is. Ensure your visuals don't have subtle errors like limbs in odd places. Also think about bias. How are you feeding into this bias? If all you're constantly getting is, for example, in terms of race, if it's only white folks that this keeps churning out to you, how do you ensure that you're able to use the right prompts to sort of push harder on it so that it doesn't become complacent, really, and just assume a questioning attitude to a lot of things that you're prompting. So think about fluidity. I think what I love about AI as well is the fact that I can use AI to generate GPT to generate copy. As a designer, I can use it to create images in Midjourney. So I am constantly existing across different multi-disciplines every single day. And that is something that like the stack just enables you to be very tech savvy beyond just one specialty. And finally, you have to be very, very intentional and just like by sometimes like give feedback on the things that are generated, because what this does is that you can help mitigate these issues by giving diverse perspectives when it gives you outputs that do not make sense. For example, there's a period in Europe where AI GPT said a certain person had murdered his family and his kids and things like that, and it went viral completely. And it was in case of mistaken identity by the AI tool. So thankfully, the person prompting was able to catch that and sort of flag those type of things. So be responsible with the tool as well. So how can you prepare in the last few minutes? Stay curious. I think that's the first thing that's going to help you. AI design is not a one-time skill that you pick up. It's continuously evolving. The minute you put it down, it's evolved way faster. It's a continuous learning journey. Stay informed on like industry news, attend webinars, experiment yourself, play with things. A lot of designers share their work on Twitter, on LinkedIn, on Threads. Following them could spark ideas for you. And just be very comfortable with like exploring these tools, because the better you can explore them, the more you can use them and bring them into your workflow. Develop your AI hand. It's back into what I mentioned earlier. Like, you begin to bridge that gap between your skill set and taste level the more you experiment with this. Use AI to amplify your perspective worldview, right? So if you're known for whimsical illustrations, for example, train AI to sort of be whimsical, right? Not just generic outputs and things like that. Just dig in beyond just the basic things that it gives to you. The human touch is increasingly becoming the differentiator between all the AI. Like, we have a lot of AI slop in the world, and only what looks like quality, which has been pushed by a human being, is what will last. Now, also think of yourself more as a curator, an editor, and a director of content. So things like practice sorting through, for example, if you've got like 50 variants, to find that one gem. When you do find a gem, don't just take it and move on. Ask yourself, what was it about this image, for example? Learn, like, justify the principles. For example, you might say, oh, the layout of this particular, the way the image is structured, it's helping me understand the better color choice that evokes the right emotion. Push. And also just collaborate. Tap into community learning a lot. Join design communities, join AI communities. There are a lot of online forums. Local meetups, even if they don't exist, what stops you from starting one, right? And just talk to people across you in other disciplines. So for example, a coder, a developer, and a designer can team up to build a custom AI tool for their studio. There's so many endless possibilities where this is concerned. And do not forget that at the end of the day, human-centered design skills will continue to become more and more critical. Understanding user emotions, their needs and contexts will never go away. And just keep pushing with this. Experiment with personal projects. It's not just a one-time thing, like I've mentioned earlier, and continue to give that feedback. Like, many tech companies look for those tools at the bottom of GPT, the thumbs up, the thumbs down. All of these things can also help to like get involved in your own little way with steering technology and not just using it. So ultimately, the industry is at an inflection point. AI is changing the creative process. It's not replacing creativity, but it's reshaping how we execute and how we deliver our ideas. And by learning these tools, you can begin to adapt your workflow. You hold fast to your human-centered value, but then we enter a new era where design is exploratory, is inclusive, and it's more efficient. And all of our roles will evolve and likely become more interesting. I implore you to embrace it with curiosity and excitement. And in the end, remember that what makes great design will not change. It's empathy for the user, a clear vision, courageous creativity. AI will simply give us like new paint brushes and lenses through which we can bring these things to life. So once again, stay curious, experiment boldly, don't fear AI, shape it. The future of design is not AI versus humans. It's AI with humans or humans with AI. And with that partnership, the creative possibilities are completely endless. Thank you very much.
Thank you so, so much, Ini, for sharing all of this. If I give everyone the opportunity to speak, I'm sure would talk down right until the close time. This has been really wonderful. I've had lots and lots of takeaways from the conversation. This was really interesting to listen to. It was also interesting to see the process you walked us through, creating the campaign and how you put all of that together. That was really, really, really wonderful to see. Thank you for sharing this. And if anyone has any question, please just drop in the chat and she will respond to that in a bit. We want to head on to the next speaker and then we can always come back to take questions. All right, let me just give access. Okay, so next up, we're going to be listening to another awesome speaker, and he will be talking about challenges in the AI world, some challenges that designers face. So Raymond is a product design lead and a creative director with over 8 years of experience helping startups and big brands to build digital products that people actually love. And in his work, he has played a key role in driving more than $185 million in growth, working with VC-backed teams and large enterprises. On the side, he's also focused on teaching and building the intersection of design, strategy, and AI. And he is the best person to handle this. Hi, Raymond. If you're on the call, you can just
Hello, everyone. Can you hear me?
yes, sure, we can hear you. Hi.
Awesome, awesome. I don't know if I have access to share
Yes.
my screen now. Awesome. All right. Can you all see my screen? Can you confirm that you can see my screen?
Yes, yes, we can.
Awesome. Good evening, everybody. My name is Raymond. I'm a product designer, and that's about it. And yeah, I mean, most of the introduction has been done already. Apart from being a product designer, I also like, talking to other designers and creative within the space. I do a lot of mentorship sessions in ADP lists and all of that. So should in case you want to reach out to me or you want to talk to me, you can feel free to book a session with me. All right. Let's get into the meat of today's session. And before I proceed, can I just give a super shout out to ԻníOlúwa? She covered a whole lot of practical use cases of the different AI tools that is out there. And she also talked about, how it can also help us, especially right now, looking at how we've entered into a new revolution. I mean, I'm sure like everybody here, we have seen the current rave about AI. There's a whole lot of tools. I was reading an article the other day, and they said the AI adoption, the people building within the AI space has literally skyrocketed to over 500%. And this is just within the last 2 years. So that tells you and I that there's a whole lot of opportunities within this AI space. And like our host mentioned, ԻníOlúwa has done a great job in helping us to see some of the practical use cases of AI. So what I'm going to be doing is sort of talking about the challenges about AI. I'm also going to be talking about the mindsets designers and other creatives should have getting into this new phase. And I'd also be sharing other use cases. So I'm going to keep this really super short so we can welcome some questions, both for myself and ԻníOlúwa can also answer your question. So let's dive deep into the session. Now, I'd like to take you back a little bit. I'm sure we've beat the importance of AI into us. It's like we need to jump into this bandwagon. But let's take like a road trip back into what the whole evolution of both design and technology has had. You would remember that, from years ago, we're talking of 2 decades ago, we have what we call the Industrial Revolution. And this is the time of our lives when we saw, machines were developed, and the goal was for the machines to replace human labor. And when this Industrial Revolution happened, what happened to the entire industry? It changed overnight. Manual jobs were now automated. People could, instead of using their hands to do a whole lot of manual jobs that would otherwise be tedious, people literally started building equipment and machines that could, handle a whole lot of work at scale. At scale, that was the Industrial Revolution. And then we got into what we call the digital revolution. And this was what birthed the internet, which is the medium through you and I are speaking today. We had the internet, we have computers, you have that small rectangle device on your hand, which is your mobile phone. And that also, it shaped a whole lot of things, right? So the world has continually kept on seeing evolution behind the tech space, and the design space has not been left out. From the industrial revolutions, we've had people build interesting technologies, interesting tools that has made our life easier. I mean, think about the way you used to convey yourself to the office, whether it's through a vehicle, whether it's, through flying. These are equipment, these are tools that has been built because of the Industrial Revolution that helps us, that makes our life easier. We can just go, it's more or less teleposition, right? Think about something that would have taken months and days to, walk. Now, just with one flight, you are at the other place in about an hour or less. So that's like one of the revolution that has happened. You had the digital revolution, and now another revolution that you and I are experiencing, which we are privileged to experience, is that of AI. And of course, this is an exciting time. And so I thought about sharing this because it's important for us to see how these different evolutions has shaped the lives of different generations of our times, both that of our grandparents to our parents, and now our time. The next evolution that we're experiencing right now is that of AI. And guys, do you know the interesting part? Is that this is still in an early phase. I mean, just in the last 3 years, AI has gotten a whole lot of adoption. In fact, it's the fastest. A data that was released, I think, earlier this year shows that this particular revolution has been the fastest among the 3 evolutions that has happened within our lifetime. And so this is an exciting time for us. And it's even more exciting because this is still in the early phase, it's still in the infancy. We call this V1 in the tech space. Like, we are still in like version 1. Now imagine what AI is going to evolve within the next 5-10 years. So this is really an exciting time. And so every designer, every creative, whether you're a graphic designer, a photographer, this is the right time to see how you can use AI to better your life, whether your goal is to create wealth for your family, whether it's for you to optimize your standard of living, and whether it's for you to just, explore your creativity more. This is that time that you can do that. Now, what are some of the use cases? I mean, ԻníOlúwa has done a great job in sharing some interesting use cases, but I would love to talk about 4. I'd like to talk about 4 use cases. The first one is product design. Then I'm going to talk about product photography. I'm going to talk about graphic design, and then I'm going to talk about general purpose image generation. So I'm just going to spend a minute or two to talk about it. Now, I'm a product designer, and surely I've definitely benefited from all the potential that AI has given me. One way that AI can help product designers specifically, or several ways actually, is in terms of user research. I'll tell you a story. About 5 years ago, was it 2020 or 2019? One of the major challenges that we had, I was working with a company called Andela at the time, and I was privileged to work with the product team. At the time, I was mainly working as an engineer, a software engineer. And I remember this one time we needed to launch an in-house product for the workers, for the staffs and all of that. And so the product team needed to conduct like some research, but here was the challenge. We are not just located in Nigeria. So Andela at the time, we're located in about 4 or 5 countries, if I remember correctly. And so this product that we were building needed to be used across these different countries. I think here in Nigeria, we had a center in Rwanda. I think we had the center in South Africa, one other, I think Kenya, and then the United States. And then I think about AI and what it would have helped us to solve back then, because the challenge we had was we had a whole lot of back and forth. So we're going to set user interviews. We had to set a whole lot of calls to sync with some team members, whether it's the dev team, whether it's the product team, just to help us to understand how we could solve this problem effectively. And it took a whole lot of time. But then if we had AI at the time, it could have helped us to limit these features. It would have helped us to craft the right questions. It would have helped us to, get a better understanding of what, people in the leadership sector wanted. So people who were working in the leadership, it could have helped us to understand that effectively. And it would have helped us to, draft out a first draft of what our initial MVP would have looked like. Now, that iteration took us about 3 months before we started working on the MVP. Now, with AI, this could have literally taken us just a milestone. And a typical milestone at the time usually takes about 2 weeks. So you can imagine that time that it has sort of shortened. So that's one use case. for user research. And I usually encourage developers or designers to sort of get on board with this. Another use cases is, of course, ideations. I noticed she also mentioned that effectively. And yeah, she's right. Ideations is something that is part of the design process that every creative usually it's just space that every designer has always carry out. By the time you get your design briefs, you talk about different ideas to make it come to life, right? And so ensuring that you use these AI platforms, and we have a whole lot of them. ChatGPT is one really interesting one. Apart from that, we have other tools. I think we have Perplexity AI, there is Kling AI, and there are literally thousands of tools that you can also explore. So why not get on board with this one that we are familiar with, the ChatGPT? And every month, ChatGPT always release interesting updates. The one that was trending literally last month was the Gilby images. That was fun. And so many other interesting concepts. My friend Joseph literally created a whole brand identity of ChatGPT. I'll drop a link to the YouTube video. I think it's really fun. And the interesting thing is this would have actually taken a whole lot of creative team, photographers, perhaps even graphic designer, to pull all of this in order. But he alone was able to do this within 3 days. And he has a YouTube channel on how you can do that. So that's another use case. It could also help you to create the first draft of your PRD, your product requirements documents. Yeah. Another interesting use case is that it could also help act as a coach to you. And this is something that I tried out initially. I found this useful, especially 2 years ago when ChatGPT launched back in when was that? Was it 2022 or 2023? Yeah, one of the ways I prompted ChatGPT was to ask it to act as a coach to me. So if there was any problem I had, like any challenge I was facing at the time, whether it's user challenge or working with our clients at the time, I always prompted it to act as a coach, and the result was pretty useful. And it's still even more useful today, looking at the updates that has happened within that space. Another practical use cases, and remember, we're talking for product design specifically. One thing that's very important for product designers is case studies. Yeah, in order to land a job, one of the things they will ask you during your interview is to present case studies, which is what have you done before and how can you show that you understand probably a particular industry that you're applying for. And case study is the only thing. So one way that you can embrace this is to actually share your case studies with this AI platform and ask it to critique it for you, right? If you have case study, you can share it with the platform. Even your resume as well. You are trying to get a job within the AI space, for instance, or with the Web3 space. Take your PDF, your resume, feed it into ChatGPT and ask it if it meets with the keywords or if your CV needs revamping, and it's going to do a good job for you to sort of give you a better suggestion. And yeah, creating copy for your websites, for articles that you might need within your department, and also creating, unique images. Gone are the days when you have to pay, exorbitant fees for images. Now, if you have a good prompt, the reason I'm reiterating it is how, effective your prompt is or how detailed your prompt is would actually help you to get even better results. And so when you're able to prompt this AI platforms like ChatGPT, you can actually get really good images. And so it can really cut costs for you. Whether you're using Figma, whether you're using the Adobe suits. I mean, right now, these softwares are getting super expensive. But then with just $20 a month for ChatGPT, you can generate tons of images. Ini mentioned that she generated 1,000 images in her last show, and that's pretty awesome. And that goes on to show you how important and how vital these tools are. For how much? For literally almost pennies as compared to the existing problem we have about 5 years ago. So all of these and more are ways that, product designers, if you're product designers on this call, you can explore using AI. Another use case I wanted to also talk about is product photography. I don't know if we have any product photographer on the call. I can't see my screen, but yeah, if you're a product photography or a photographer, yeah, another interesting way to optimize your skill is to also embrace it. I was watching a video the other day, and this guy was literally showing us, different ways that you can actually, conceptualize a product and place it into different branding elements. So say you have a contract for, say, a perfume company, for instance. You can simply go on Pinterest, you see a poster you like, you can get the poster as your reference source, feed it into ChatGPT, get the product, feed it into ChatGPT, and ask it to create a replica. And voila, it would give you different references, right? You no longer have to call like a graphic designer to help you to come up with different concepts. You can literally do it on ChatGPT. Yeah. Typography is something else that you can also embrace. So one of the beautiful things about graphic design is the use of typography. Typography can help to convey a particular feeling that you want for your product. And so if you see any typography that you want as an initial concept, you could take it and you could also feed it to ChatGPT and ask it to extract this type of fonts, this typography for you. And it is just going to do that for you. And you could take it, show it as a first draft to your client. If they like it, you can pay for the fonts and you can use it. And graphic designers too can also leverage from this. And the fourth and final use case I wanted to mention is general purpose image generation. So as designers, one of the things that we usually do, especially when we want to sample our work, is to create different mock-ups of some of the screens that we've designed, whether it's for websites, whether it's for mobile apps and things like that. And so platforms like ChatGPT, I like referencing ChatGPT because I literally use it 80% of the time, every single day. And so it can help you to generate, mock-ups that you can place some of these your design concepts, and you'd see how beautiful it turns out to be. Now, obviously, these are AI platforms, and AI platforms like these are built by imperfect humans. And so some of the challenges that we can experience, or a lot of you might have noticed, is that AI, sometimes it hallucinates. And it was a problem, especially last year, especially because AI, ChatGPT, for instance, it was bringing data and reports that was non-existent, right? It could just formulate something that was non-existent, and that was a major problem. And so we have to be really, really careful. One of the things that I like, especially with the company that I work with, is they are working with, I think, the United States government to literally bring about guardrails to support these AI platforms for security reasons, because something as smart as this tool that we have, bad eggs within our industry can also use it, and so it's very important for us to understand that this AI is not perfect, and whenever we are prompting it, maybe for it to generate data, it's important for us to cross-reference it. Now the ChatGPT has a feature where you can ask it to generate references, where you can check out these links. So look out for hallucinations from AI, because these platforms are not perfect yet. So these are basically the 4 use cases that we have. Another challenge that designers that I've noticed that the experience is people becoming scared because they are concerned that it's going to basically take their jobs away. And one of the things I like to mention, and I think what's his name? That's the founder of OpenAI, one of the founders of OpenAI, he mentioned is AI is not looking to replace our job. And then he made a reference to what Uber did about 12 years ago. When Uber, Bolt came into existence, one of the major concerns that people had was it was going to take a whole lot of jobs from people that existed in the taxi space, like people who were riding taxi. Like that was a whole lot of concerns. You have literally taken jobs from taxi people. But 12 years down the line, we've seen that it has actually created even more new interesting jobs and has even increased how much a regular taxi man would charge, right? And so the same illustration also applies to AI. So it's not going to take our job. It's a challenge and a concern, a genuine concern that people have that, oh, it's going to take our job. But listen, AI is not going to be the one to take your job. It's the people who uses this platform, the people who uses AI. These are the ones that are probably going to take your job. And that goes on to emphasize the importance of actually embracing AI, because at the end of the day, that's where the world is literally heading. And another interesting thing that it is important for us to realize that AI is basically leveling the playing field. So say 5, 6, 7 years ago, if you're a developer, to get into the tech space, you would have to spend months of learning. Now, within the last year, the new job title has come out, which is vibe coding. And Ini mentioned it. A whole lot of people are now vibe developers. And what does vibe developers mean, or vibe engineers? These are people who literally use AI to build interesting platforms, without writing code. That's the key term that you should understand. Vibe developers, they don't need to actually, well, of course they write code, but these are not code that they formulate themselves. These are AI generated code. They prompt an AI platform like Cursor, and what happens? It's generate code for them. And this is, an interesting job that has, if someone had told you that there would be something like vibe coding about 5 years ago, of course, a lot of people would laugh at that. But this is a whole new job market that has been created. And a lot of people are actually getting on this bandwagon. People that are not developers or software engineers are literally building softwares and selling it and making money out of it. When AI came out, there was a guy on Instagram that I think he titled his series Road to $1 Million. And the series was how he was using ChatGPT at the time to create a new business model that was going to generate $1 million within the first 12 months. So whether you are a product designer, a graphic designer, you understand the pain point that you're experiencing. How about trying to see how you can prompt AI to create solutions that you are experiencing? Solutions to problem, because when you create solution for a problem that you're experiencing, you can bet that there are other people within the space that can share the same thing, and you could monetize it down the line, right? So that's one interesting perspective that we all should understand. And the real difference between you and the next creative is how you create, whether it's a software. You really are not being held back by anything anymore, because AI is literally your companion. I like to call it a new superpower that we all have. And so it has actually leveled the playing ground. So what's an advice that I would give to people today? Try to be specific. Focus on how AI is impacting your current industry, and try to fine-tune your learning model to see how you can onboard AI and learn from it. You can take online courses, right? You can attend workshops like this that Propel has been kind to organize. You can experiment with a lot of AI tools, and believe me, we have a whole lot of them out there. We have Lovable, we have Cursor, we have Rive, and we have a whole lot more. At Config yesterday, they mentioned a whole lot of interesting features that have been added into Figma, Figma Make, Figma Sites. Now you can actually, build a website directly off Figma. And I'm sure down the line, you could actually build a whole software app directly from Figma. This is really an exciting time if you think about it. 2 years ago, if you tell anybody that you could actually, design or build a website off Figma, you couldn't have done that. But now, with some of the new advancements that Figma is bringing into the community and what they are to bring in future, man, this is an exciting time. And so it's important for you to understand this technology and get on the bandwagon of it. You can join online communities as well. Another very important thing for you to do is to expand your skill sets. How do I mean? So think about it. If you're a graphic designer on this call, how about you diversify your skill? You can take up a skill as a UI UX designer. You can learn how to build products. You can learn how to be a vibe developer. And one of the things that I like to beat into the heads of my mentees is that you should not be defined by your tool, but you should be defined by your ability to stay curious, right? And this is a trap that most people fall into. They're like, oh, they want to be the best at Figma. They want to be the best at learning Figma. And it's like, no, these are like tools. This is just a means to an end. The world keeps on evolving, right? And that's why I mentioned from the onset, I wanted to talk more about mindsets, because it's one thing to just get fixated on the tool. But then what happens when those tools are no longer the in thing in the market? I'll give you an example. Back in 2019, when I was, playing around product design, there was this tool at the time. It was as popular as Figma now. It was called InVision. I don't know if anyone is familiar with that tool. It's called InVision. Well, some of the OGs might be familiar with it. Yes, at the time, it was the tool that everyone was talking about. It was pretty much like Figma. But where is InVision today? I think I read recently that InVision, they've had to scrap InVision, right? So imagine I'm a designer at the time building their career and, wanting to be fixated on learning InVision and InVision alone. You'd agree with me that you awesome designers here that were wise enough to learn other tools like Figma, of course, you'll be in a better position, right? So it's very important for us to have that at the back of our mind. You see, the list goes on. The trick is that the skills that will matter most is creativity, problem-solving skill, and adaptability. I say it again, creativity, problem-solving, and adaptability. These are the skills that is going to matter, especially right now. And so these are the skills and tools that you should learn. And when you have this, and you are able to build your creativity, there are endless tools and practical use cases that you can use it to generate, whether it's wealth for yourself. So upskilling is no longer an option, right? It is very important for us to see it as something that is mandatory. The efforts you put in right now will pay off massively in the near future. So the point is, do not get left behind, guys. I'm sure Propel is going to share a recording of this talk. I would encourage you to rewatch it again. See some of the several use cases that ԻníOlúwa has mentioned. See how you can use it within your company to become even a more valuable designer within your company to generate even more profits for yourself. This is an exciting time, guys, and I really hope that we can get all of the advantage that AI has to offer. Yeah, like I said, AI won't take your jobs away. The creative who uses it will. And we are close to 100 of us. So imagine all of us, embrace all the beautiful things about AI. It's going to be an exciting time. We are going to build even more interesting and effective tools that would, make life a little bit more easier for us. So gone are the days when we follow a non-linear approach into design, right? We ideate, we prototype, we test, we define problems and research. Now we can explore different ways to, conceptualize our ideas into life. I saw a tweet yesterday from, what's his name? Was it Design Chef on Twitter? Some of us might be familiar with it. And he mentioned something to the tune of, AI is blurring the conversation around, does designer need to learn how to code, right? Because a whole lot of designers, because of how AI is right now, they can literally vibe code a solution without needing to learn, JavaScript, HTML, CSS, React, and all of those frameworks for programming. And so this is really an interesting time. So in the past, design was just for designers. But now, whether you're a product manager, whether you are, a developer, you can actually create interesting designs because of AI. So that's about it, guys. This is the time for us to leverage AI, and this is the time for us to benefit from all the whole advantage that AI has to offer for us. So that's about it. I think we've even gone past the time. But yeah, feel free, if you have any questions, feel free to indicate. And thank you also very much. My name is Raymond Akalonu, and these are my contact address. You can feel free to reach out to me anytime. Thank you so much for the time.
Thank you so much, Raymond. Thank you for sharing all of that. We've learned a lot of things on the call. So I'm just going to give a few minutes for, let's say just two persons to raise their hand and then share what they've learned for about an hour plus now. Things you've learned from Ini and things you've learned from Raymond. Just two persons to share that, and then we'll wrap up. Anyone who raises their hand, I'll just call on them.
I can see this question, if I may. I can take this one about optimizing free AI tools to optimize your workflow. Right. I mean, I recognize that these subscriptions will be quite a lot in Naira. So Lovable, for example, does do free credits. They used to have a whole lot more available, but once they did their rebrand, for example, I know that it's been limited to like 5 daily credits. But I saw a hack somewhere where someone's like use like 3 or 4 email addresses to be able to get up to 20 credits at least in a day. That's more than enough for you to be able to practice with it and build what you want, quite frankly. So you've got Lovable. I'll recommend experimenting with both AI as well. And drag and drop your Figma files. It doesn't have to be like a full prototype or anything. Use these tools to create the prototype. I think that's the problem with like a lot of AI companies are embracing a freemium. ChatGPT, for example, I know that's available for free to an extent up until they limit your the number of prompts you can put in. We don't have enough time for me to go through the entire design process. There are quite a number of tools, but those are the ones top of mind I would say definitely experiment with. And I don't know, Figma, I started releasing the what they announced. At least I know I got mine yesterday. But I know it'll probably be like batch releases. When they do release it, it probably will be in beta for a while. Go ahead, test it out. Before they then I know they're starting to go Adobe routes, let's be honest, which is all of these tools will be standalone and you're going to pay for it the way you pay for Photoshop, Illustrator, and things differently. But yeah, I hope that's helpful.
Thank you, Ini. If you asked that question, I hope that's given the answer to that. Okay, we'll just get right on to taking this. Hi, Samuel. You can unmute. I'll just ask to unmute and speak. Just share what you've gathered from the conversation today. Hi, Samuel. You can speak now.
Hi. Hello?
Yes, we can hear you.
All right, okay. Thank you very much for the time to actually say one or two from what I've learned. So far, I think I started with the first lecture from the first speaker, and then the lecture was very, very interesting, and I really learned a lot, especially understanding how to make use of the various AI tools and working with them, and especially keeping curiosity on. I think that's one striking point for me, because right now I'm working on a project and I'm just trying to see various AI tools I can integrate, work with, and see how to come up with something. While for that of the lecture with the last speaker, I've forgotten his name. I think the main point I picked there was just be the driver, as in the AI tools are meant for us to drive with, not actually to be scared of. At a point, I was actually having that kind of thought, like, does it mean this AI coming up on board, are they going to, put us aside? But later on, I started seeing the relevance, and from his lecture, I think he just had a striking point on my mind, like you can drive along with them, and instead of sticking to one and just being afraid, you can walk alongside with them and just keep curiosity on. I think that's all I can say for now. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Samuel, for bailing us all out. Thank you for sharing all of that. And I also hope that everyone on the call has their own has other things that they've learned as well from the conversation. So if you can, please do well to follow Propel on all social media platforms. The link has been dropped in the chat. It's @Propel on LinkedIn, on X, and on Instagram. Again, thank you so much to Ini and Raymond for sharing all of these insights. It has really been an interactive one. We have overstayed time, but it was worth the time overstayed. Thank you so much. Thank you again to everyone for joining, for those who joined on time and even those who joined in halfway. We will have master classes like this So for now, we've covered developers, and for designers, there are other master classes planned out for those in data, those who in product management, and other niches in our ecosystem as well. So look out for our updates on socials, and if your community is part of Propel, your admins would also receive the information to share that with you too. Again, thank you so much, everyone, for joining, and do enjoy the rest of your evening. We'll see you on the next one. Bye.